All right, welcome back to part two. Last video we did was covering our game against Kansas Wesleyan, Lijiang Tower. Now we're going to be moving on to the hybrid map of Eichenwalde. We played them in a bit of a shorter map, so we're going to be trying to go over a bit more at potentially a slower speed and sort of like our ideology going into this. So yeah, let's go and get started. So right off the bat, I just want to go and start us off with definitely a bit of a comp switch up from Lijiang Tower. So the theory going into these three maps is that we wanted to focus on playing, or like at testing out the three main compositions that are played in Overwatch, or at least the main like three basic ones. So like Lijiang was all about the Reinhardt Lucio Rush comp, and this one will be all about the Orisa Baptiste sort of a spam composition or poke composition, however you want to call it. And then Gibraltar, which we'll get into later, is more focused on the dive, the Winston on a dive composition. But for
I also think
now,
it's
yes, go on. Sorry.
I think it's interesting how the other team they stuck with pretty much the same comp. The only real difference that I notice is the Cassidy.
Yeah.
They're still running the Rhine Diva.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious how that's gonna play out.
Yeah, so normally with how the rock paper scissors theory works, like if both teams are playing at a sort of like equal level, like poke, like what you're seeing right now, poke will usually win against rush compositions because like the whole point of rush is like getting up close and personal and like closing the distance as fast as possible with Lucio speed boost. The issue is that there's so much spam damage coming in from our poke composition with the Orisa spam, the Diva spam, and the Hanzo spam, and especially with Kevin, who's on his signature Genji, constantly in their back line harassing them. Like there's just so much damage coming from so many different angles that it's difficult to push up. Like you
But
saw
this is
there in the first engagement, like this Rhine just shields just keeps getting melted, like as they're rounding this corner.
but I feel like this lineup as well, maybe only except for you, Joe. So if you're doing Arista here, everyone is kind of on their, in isolation. If I was playing a casual game, I'd pick this hero kind of pick, right? I mean, I feel like Gus does a lot of Hanzo, like you mentioned Genji already. Yeah, is a big Mercy player, so it seems like it was a nice natural fit there. You know what I mean? Like for a plan to fit the map, but also kind of what our players like to do.
Yeah, sort of like comfort picks.
Yeah, but we do like we do pretty well on this map is my feeling. I don't know if I'm just imagining that. I feel like I always feel pretty good about this map most of the time.
Yeah, this
What do you
map
think,
is.
James?
Oh.
Oh, sorry. Go
Oh
ahead,
no no
Joseph,
go ahead. No, James, go ahead. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I feel like
I'll go and slow it down a bit.
I think we're kind of on a 50-50 for this map. I feel like sometimes we'll do good, sometimes we won't. Especially if we're attacking, and I'm remembering from past seasons, last semester more specifically, there was some points where we would attack, and on the second point, after we get through this choke, we find it hard to push through the castle. And I think the payload portion is more difficult um, in that aspect on this map.
Is the map a lot
Yeah.
easier to defend and attack?
I
Typically.
I feel like yes and no. I feel like this map is super 50-50. The it's definitely harder to
Oh,
defend. Um, I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
it's very hard to
sorry to interrupt.
come up with.
I just love that part so much. Just watching
Oh god.
just watching yeah go girl boss all over that baby diva is just always funny to watch.
What I was gonna say, I mean, my reading of this map is as well as like when we get ahead of steam, we can be really lethal on this map, which the map is kind of designed for that a little bit. But yeah, we have Ye back as well. Makai, I was gonna ask you, so like Ye's kind of number one choice typically be a Mercy. So what's Mercy bringing to well to this map in particular? Do you think? You know, you're the support player. You're a resident support expert tonight.
Uh, Mercy's really good, like at focusing on one here. Like right now, we see her damage boosting Crow. That's her damage boost does a lot of damage in the hands of a hero like Hanzo, who can basically just start one-shotting a lot of the damage and support heroes if he gets the shot lined up, especially at the head, which Gus is pretty good at doing. So that can be a good really early like momentum killer if we get one of their supports or one of their really strong DPS just picked off at the very beginning when they try to push up.
Like what's
Also,
happening right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Joseph, you're Arisa. Why aren't you the ubiquitous Ryan? I feel like, why Arisa this time and not Reinhardt? You touched on it a little bit earlier, but
Yes,
it seems to be
so
working really well.
yeah, so the poke composition, this is something that we typically run, especially on first point defense, just because this corner and this straightaway sort of allows us to play from range. And like the fact that we have to force we can force the enemy team to like funnel into either like going one way or the other. We can just spam them down before they even get close to us. So the reason I'm not going Rhine here is because first of all we wanted to go and practice our poke composition anyway. Also, I'm sorry, I'm gonna cut myself off here because Gus and Ye are about to clutch up.
Oh, snap. With the
Yeah,
pistol kill and the res.
Yeah, this map for them is just insane. Just watching this happen.
And so what's changed? Because we did in the first map, also available online, everybody. Like we finished that conversation by talking about how close it was, and this was hard, right? Like Kansas Wesleyan really struggled to. Well, they didn't get that first point here. So like what's changed in between the two maps or two?
I think
games?
generally that first like control map is the way I see it is since it's not typically our best map. I see it as a great way to really just understand how our enemy team likes to play, what kind of compositions they like, what kind of heroes they tend to prefer, and to see how they manage their team and how they move together. So what they did in this map is pretty almost identical to how they tried to move and position themselves in the last map. So since we already kind of know a little bit about how they're going to approach us, especially since they have a Ryan, they really have to full commit to just running right into us and trying to out damage us. We can set up and basically just hinder them before they even get within striking distance.
Right, exactly, and that's what feeds into the philosophy of this poke composition. Like, especially since they were running rush. Like, of course, it's not always going to be 100% guaranteed that a poke is going to beat out rush, but definitely, like, again, on neutral ground, which, as we've seen, like, in that initial Lijiang Tower map, like, I feel like we were basically on even terms. The difference maker, I think, now is sort of a composition differential, honestly. Like, yeah, of course, some old-fashioned Crow 5 in a row sort of style clutch up as well. Just like... Actually, I'll go back to it later on, but there was a funny part where Gus got a pick. Also, I'm sorry. Before we go back to that, I also want to point out just something I noticed, like in the middle of the match. So now they're running the same thing that we are running. And I'm not sure if this is something that they were pre-planned, like they planned beforehand, or they just saw like if it worked for us, it'll work for them. I'm not sure the philosophy of it, but this was definitely going to be a bit of a challenge for us. But because of like the the poke sort of matchup here, the key differential I want to point out that sort of puts our comp above like theirs is their sort of focus, like with their soldier and cast picks here they want to be focusing like strictly on frontline damage. Yes, the soldier can go around, but the way he's playing right now is like strictly frontline. And the problem is that and also like they have an Ana instead of a Baptiste. So Ana is going to be mostly focusing on healing rather than damage, since Baptiste is more equipped to do both at the same time. So immediately going off here, we're going to start with the damage advantage because of Gus's Hanzo, and also because of Josh's Baptiste. And coupled with that, there's also an important thing that plays into poke composition that we are going to see here. Let me go ahead and get us started again. I'll point it out once it starts happening.
Well, you got to interrupt to point it out, Joseph, but I wanted to say, as someone, we were building the program and everything, what's really intriguing is at the collegiate level, and, below Grandmasters, below Masters, where we are, this tension between kind of meta and so on and execution. So, like, one of the big things that has seen our program evolve, in my opinion, in the last few months has been that the comp kind of pick kind of stuff that Joseph that you're talking about is just a more viable thing for us to be talking about, thinking about strategizing around. Whereas early on we just weren't ready for it for a whole variety of reasons, not player talent really, more a sense of like you know, playing together and talking with each other and stuff. So going back to the point that Mackay made, because I see you guys do that. I see you guys kind of size up a team in that first map, and that's a real sign of growth from that perspective. You know.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, like the big thing I think with spring 2021 was that we are still like in that we are starting that transition phase between like a club
Hmm.
sort of vibe to like a competitive esports setting. So like like if you look at like the philosophy of spring 2021 compared to like what we're going for now, it feels almost like night and day. Not that there's like a negative or a positive night and day, but it's just like it's a different style that you can definitely notice like different changes in.
Yeah, well, it's about. I think from my position, I was joking earlier about Overwatch knowledge, but it's evolving as a group of people, and that's one of the things where collegiate esports is super interesting. So, like, for if anybody's watching who happens to be just broadly interested in collegiate esports, at Center, when we're not in a COVID situation, being around each other in person is really important,
Hmm.
and kind of having face to face time is really important because there's all these things you start to get good at and get to know each other makes you a better team, and so then and then some people do, like as you can probably tell from watching this video, Joseph, if someone wants to come in and talk about this analysis of this is what we should do and here's the pick we should take. And it takes a while for a group of people to get to a point where everyone's on the same wavelength. And like I think, unless I missed something, hopefully I didn't. I think everyone always liked each other. That wasn't the issue. But this issue of like yeah, like evolving. So like I think that Joseph, I think you're right. I mean, I think that the vibe of the team on top of everything else has just continued to develop as over the past couple of seasons. A season equaling semester, the way we're all talking about it.
Hmm.
And this was great. This look at what a great way to end this map. They've got to be frustrated after this.
Oh yeah.
KW is a tough one for them.
Oh yeah, it's again it like plays into that idea that we were talking about earlier of like how important that initial map is, because the like usually how these games go is like the control map is always going to be like the sort of energy depleter for the lack of a better term. Like you're going to invest like everything into that control map to get just like that one map advantage to put yourself on game point. That when it comes around to the second point, it really shows like who has the stamina to like properly adapt to like what enemy composition you're facing and like knowing or just like knowing what to do in specific situations. Because like again, like trust me, as someone who's played ladder a lot, especially with like tank compositions, I can tell you that playing Rhine into double shield or just poke compositions in general is just never a fun thing, and that's
It's
just a
awful.
big issue with just like mentality. I'm not sure if it was like really a tilting thing for their team because again, I I don't have any frame of reference to give that, but just like from personal experience, I can tell you it can get tilting sometimes. And also, speaking of tilting, I sort of wanted to point out this moment that I actually do have marked, and I will go and professionally show instead of what happened last time. So as you can see, like their rush compositions walking up. Now I'm only pointing this out because again, as I mentioned, I played ladder a lot, and this as Reinhardt, this happens to me all the time. So like, yeah, their
Yeah.
Hanzo just got immediately picked before the fight even begins, and if you look back there for a
You're Ryan.
second, yeah, their Rhine actually like hang on, I missed it, but yeah, there's always a bit of loading to this, but their Rhine is like walking up, then the whole Gus clutch comes in. He's just looking back at his team. I cannot tell you how many times that happens to me in just ranked, where I'm just like, oh, well, he's
Yeah.
dead. Time
And
to wait like 15 more minutes so then he
as
can
a
respawn and we can start again.
as a DPS player, that's something that I personally look out for. Is I look out for that fault in the Reinhardt's shield placement, as in like, is he going to jump or make a slight turn? Is he going to drop his shield? So I will purposefully hold my cursor over a high value target and look for that kill.
Yeah,
Huh.
it's like that's like it's like it's always a big thing to look out for because like the main thing that's changed from 2016 to uh, like now is like how Reinhardt's sort of played. Like initially, everyone thought like, oh, it's Reinhardt. He's the shield guy. Like he's constantly going to be holding shield. The thing is like just because of how much damage there is in this game, like Rein's shield is less of a team protector and more of a personal protector that happens to be also a protector for the team. Just because like if you drop shield for like more than 5 seconds, or even like more than 2 seconds, like you're going to get melted. So it's like you're constantly going to have to swap between like walking normally without the shield and then walking with the shield in order to like sort of, for the lack of a better term, like balance out that the shield health and your own health before, so then you can get healed up or get to corners fast enough.
Yes, John, man, that's a very similar situation that Brig currently is, and I know a lot
Yeah.
of that because I main her. So, especially with how little health her shield personally has, you really have to know how to manage when you can take a little bit of damage to get in a couple of hits and proc inspire to let that heal yourself as well as any of your nearby teammates, and when
Right.
to block really dangerous abilities.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like knowing when to put it down and when knowing when to like put it up. It's just so important, especially now. So
Hmm.
it's like it's all about like building that game sense up. So also to
Hey,
sort of go on to the next thing. This is the last thing. Then we can move on to the third and final map. But I just want to go and point out two big things that happen here. One is how we're running this poke composition. So the idea of poke composition is yes, like spam like damage as much as you can, like at the enemy front line. But also because of that damage and because of that sustainability, a big thing about poke composition is taking angles. And I feel like the reason why we were able to win this first fight is mostly attributed to our DPS who play those angles perfectly. So like look, so hang on, let me put it in half speed here. So what ends up happening is Gus, Kevin, and Ye are over here on the left side, right? And half our team is over here. Now, normally this wouldn't work, but because of the sustain that we have and our ability to follow up on stuff, we are able to sort of poke from two different angles and overwhelm them because they're playing this like a rush composition, like they're all moving as a unit, and trying to like rush onto us. But the issue is that they're being shot from two different angles, whereas they only have one angle of attack. So actually, what they do here is like they funnel through like this little corridor here. Which, by the way, they have a mercy, so she's only going to be able to heal one person at a time. Now, what happens here is while they're pushing through here, I noticed that their plan is like to stack through here and like push out onto us. So since they have Ana as a main heal, projectiles don't go through barriers. So while they're walking through here, I made sure that instead of like using my shield to block off their damage, I knew that Josh and would have my back here and make sure that I'm healed, make sure I can survive. Meanwhile, they're pushing out. They're completely separated from their Ana heals because of this shield. And also because of the initial angles that Gus and Kevin were taking, we're able to capitalize on the Ana being split. Kevin's able to take her out. They're completely split up. Their DP, their squishies are all like locked in this corner here, where Kevin and Jonathan just like clean up. Then the attempted res, but at this point, like they've already lost too many people, and this engagement's basically over. So this
I
is
want.
like a pure example of like how to play poke composition, especially for this map.
So I have a quick question before you wrap up because I'm going to ask another psychology question. So
Yes.
at this point, this is a good night for Centre College, right?
Yes.
And for people who wouldn't know, the NECC, you play three maps, but it's not a best of three. You always play three
Yes.
for scoring reasons, and in activation to get a sense of like, so if KW can get the third map, then that means they're closer to us in skill ranking or whatever, or competitiveness rather, than if they'd been wiped 3-0. So I want to flip this question for you guys, James. I'm going to ask you because I know you've all been in this position. You've lost the first map, but it was kind of tight. The second map has just not gone well, right? Like,
Right.
how are you going into that third map? Like, you know, it might be useful later in the regular season. It could be useful for scoring purposes later. How does it work, or is everyone just so frustrated you want it to be over? You know?
There's definitely that sort of feeling of, we didn't win this. This third map is kind of pointless, but earning that last point is worth going into that third match positively and trying to find the silver lining, sort of. Even if your morale is super low, you really need to go into that third match thinking that you're about to win the entire thing, even if we have already lost. Um, but it is super important to keep that sort of positive mentality to try and get that last point.
Yeah.
Just to add on to a little bit about that, like in the fall, we we always had a saying, especially that helped when we moved up in our division. Center does not get 3-0'd.
We
Yes.
don't do
Yeah.
Even if we are down, we're still gonna play that last match like it's the first match, and we're gonna do our very best to prove ourselves.
Yeah, and I think the biggest game that sort of inspired that mentality was, I don't know if you all remember this, the Newberry game where
Oh,
we
yeah.
got smoked for the first 2 points. I think it was some control point. I don't remember which one. And then Nimbani, where we just didn't have a solution to their dive composition. Then when it came to Watchpoint Gibraltar, like something just clicked, and we just rallied together, and we were just able to clutch that map out. And it was the most exciting thing. Like I remember being lightheaded and on the floor, like after we had won that Gibraltar game. It was just like it was just such a momentum turner and such a
I
just a
remember
big
that.
thing for
Mhm.
just for the team in general. So it's like,
That was very much like a rush of adrenaline right there.
yeah, it's like especially like because that game ended in a team wipe. Like their first round, we ended that on a graph drag that killed like 6 people, and then like on our attack where we had to essentially push the payload through all 3 points. It's we ended that fight on a team kill, and just the silence, like the calm before the storm, before everyone started screaming into their mics, like "Let's go!" and like all that. It was just, it's just like that's where that sort of mentality that we've sort of gotten on this team sort of comes from. And I gotta say that it's really definitely it's pulled us through a lot of games where like we're down like against the wall, and we just have nowhere to go. We just have to fight it out.
It's so great to hear that. And these are moments that like build a program, and like that's exactly what happens. And like we're getting to the point now where Mackay and other seniors are graduating, but James and Joseph, by the time you graduate, if all goes well, you'll have been playing competitive Overwatch with the Centre College Overwatch team for 4 years.
Hmm.
And that's a difficult. I know there's maybe people even watching who are part of teams and friend groups and stuff that sustain, play dates. I'm a father of young children. I'm using the wrong words, but like game sessions and stuff. But that's really hard. I think that's rare. I think it's hard to find, and so I'm really happy that we can give each other that in our program. So
Yeah.
and yeah, and a big win here tonight. Roll Kearns.
Yep.
Roll
Absolutely.
curds.
Then yeah, let me go and move us out of here, and we will get on to our third map in the next video. So we will see you all then.